Welcome to Secret Story. I have two much younger twin brothers who are very keen sportsmen. My brothers Jack and James are 10 years younger than me, and both married incredibly gorgeous ladies within a few months of each other. This story related to their wives and happened in the early 2000s when I was still a police officer. This time, I was living with my wife, Tracy, and daughters in a small town in western Suffolk, England. James's wife, Abby, was a 5'6" blonde. She was 22 years old. She was very athletic, a regular gym bunny, and ran in marathons. She was fit with strong, shapely legs and nice. Jack's wife, Jane, who was 24, was a 5'3" brunette. Short, perfect legs, and pretty feet. Both ladies were beautiful, loved to see me in uniform, and treated me as an older brother as neither had any siblings. That was until they seduced me. My brothers were away playing rugby in Ireland. Tracy and our daughters were visiting her mother on the other side of the county, and she had no transport as I had driven them there and returned for work in our only car. Before my brothers went away, they asked if I could keep an eye on their wives and help them if they needed anything, which I of course agreed to. I arrived home after my early shift and took a shower. I slipped on a pair of swim shorts as it was a hot summer day, and I had planned to spend the afternoon in my neighbor's swimming pool relaxing with a good book. My wealthy neighbors were away on holiday and had allowed me to use the pool and steam room to keep an eye on the property and feed the cats. The pool was only a small indoor pool with sliding doors that opened into the huge private garden. The steam room was inside the building that housed the pool. There was a knock on the front door. I answered it. I found Abby and Jane on the doorstep. They were both dressed in vests, shorts, and sandals and looked amazing. "Surprise," they said in unison. I said, "What are you doing here?" Abby said, "We heard you were home alone, so we have come to keep you company, and you have use of the neighbor's pool." I said, "How would you know?" Abby said, "Tracy told us." Jane said, "So are we going to swim then?" I said, "Sure, I was just heading over there to have a dip and then chill out and read my book." Abby said, "We had something more exciting in mind," and she laughed as she and Jane hugged each other. There was a side gate from my garden to my neighbor's so no one would know what we were doing. I opened the sliding doors, removed the pool cover, and fired up the steam room. We all selected a sun bed. We all took a dip in the pool and swam around for about 30 minutes. Then took up a position on a sunbed and chilled out in the hot afternoon sun. I took up a position on one of the beds and opened my book. I only managed a few pages when I found my eyes getting heavy. I had been up since 4 a.m. that morning for my shift and must have dozed off. I was awoken by the sound of laughter and splashing water. I noticed Abby and Jane were messing about in the pool, and to my surprise, Jane noticed that I had awoken from my short nap and waved for me to join them. I was dubious, but they insisted I join them, so I jumped in and swam towards the furthest point. The ladies laughed and both swam towards me. I was in the deepest part of the pool, clinging to the edge. Abby swam up and was beside me. Jane dove under the water. Jane reappeared with my shorts in hand and tossed them onto the patio area. The girls were giggly and they were both sober, neither having had any alcohol, so I was surprised at their antics. We all moved to the shallow end where we could all stand. Abby was closest. She was so beautiful. Then she kissed me on the lips. The events had taken over before I pulled back and stopped. I lifted myself out of the pool and sat on the edge. I looked at the two beautiful women and said, "You are my brother's wives. What are we doing? This is not right. I am sorry, but..." I was stopped mid-sentence by Jane, who said, "We are just having some harmless fun. We are family, so what harm is being done?" Jane said, "I just wanted some fun. Abby feels the same." She looked at Abby and said, "Don't you?" Abby grinned, nodded. I suggested we move to the steam room, which would be more comfortable. They both agreed and virtually dragged me in and slammed the door. 1 hour and we cleaned up the pool area, shut down the steam room, and returned to my house. There, we showered and ordered a takeaway to be delivered. We opened some wine and spent the evening on the sofa, as it was so hot, and watched some television. The girls stayed over and we enjoyed another round of games and fun in the bedroom. This time I had to go to work early the following morning and left them in bed. When I returned after my shift, I had expected them to have left, but to my surprise I found them lying on my bed. I took a shower and was about to join. We spent the rest of the afternoon playing We spent the next few hours. That was a great afternoon. One we never repeated as a threesome, although I did see them individually on several occasions. A few weeks after this we all got together as a family when the children were staying at their grandparents' and played poker and other games which became very. I will fill you in next time. Welcome to Secret Story, Part 5, Final Coming. I couldn't sleep. I nearly exploded and barked. I had to get away from Elaine. I stood and walked out without a word, leaving her sitting in the shower to think about what she had said. I dried off and dressed in shorts and a t-shirt. I went into the kitchen and poured myself a large tumbler of Jack. I drank half of it as I entered my office and turned on my computer. I wanted to be clear about what would happen if I divorced Elaine. It was not what I wanted, but it may be my only way forward. My heart was broken, and even though the doctor had clinically explained how the cheating debacle had happened, her explanation did not explain why my wife could have forsaken me that whole night. Then there was the question, what if I had not been in the kitchen that morning and had not stopped them? Would they have been in bed all day long with Elaine never giving me a thought? It pained me greatly to admit that that would have been what would have happened had I not been there. Then what would have happened? This was a significant, looming question that had to be answered, but how? I focused on looking at the computer screen for the answers to my divorce questions. I was not happy with what I was reading. As I expected, the man gets shafted by the law while the cheating wife benefits and gets everything even though they were the guilty party. It was good that we had no children. Or it would be even worse for me. I drank a swallow of Jack and wondered if Elaine was genuinely sorry about what she had done or if she was using that to, hopefully, save our marriage. I heard Elaine outside the door. She stood there for several minutes, then the door opened, and she looked inside. I glanced at her, then back at my computer, and began to fill out the divorce papers I had found online. I wanted Elaine to see what I was doing. She would panic. Then she had to read the documents and understand just how badly she had hurt me and possibly destroyed our marriage. I knew that logical thinking had to start so that correct decisions could be made about our future. Elaine moved into the room. But I paid her no mind and continued to type. She moved behind me and could see what I was typing. Words flowed onto the screen, filling out each section. Then I heard a gasp and a loud thump behind me. I turned to see Elaine lying on the floor, her hands over her face as she began to sob. I said nothing and turned to finish filling out the divorce form. I printed it out and moved on to another form I completed and printed. Now, I was ready to continue our talk. I turned to Elaine. I was pretty miffed after her statement and reading the bullshit divorce information. Sit on the love seat. We have to continue with my part of our discussion. I do not want to hear any more crying or sniveling. You created this problem, and either we fix it so we can move on together, or I will swiftly end it, divorce you, and you will be on your own. Do you understand? Elaine looked at me with horror as she scrambled up onto the love seat. She looked like shit, with stringy wet hair and no makeup with tear stains marking her cheeks. I leaned over and handed her the divorce document I had printed. Elaine, you need to read this, I said, and I left the room. Where are you going? Elaine asked in a panic. Just read the document completely. I will be back in a minute. I closed the door and walked to the kitchen. I leaned on the counter, thinking about this whole debacle. My emotions, doubts, and fears were all over the place. Adrenaline had been coursing through my veins for 2 days, and finally, I was crashing. The true gravity of the situation was pressing down on me. I finally thought about myself without emotion, thinking about what this all meant. I challenged myself to recognize my feelings about what I had seen, heard, and experienced. It had all been like an action movie, only in living color, real life. I sat down and drank a glass of water, rolling the glass in my palms as I pondered Elaine's and my future. What did I want now? Was it different than what I wanted 48 hours ago? What about Elaine? She was different now. I had never seen this woman before, and she worried me. We had been a tight couple, madly in love and always in lust for each other. I never thought of Elaine being pleasured by another man. That had been painful to see and hear, creating doubts in my mind and soul about whether I was the right man for her and whether she was the right woman for me. Could we overcome this mess, succeed long-term, and build the family we both wanted? Could I trust her without questioning her every move for the rest of our lives together? God, this was a monumental moment. The decisions I make now will rule my and Elaine's lives forever. I had to be entirely clear-headed to make these decisions. I needed to be away from her for maybe an hour until my mind cleared. I walked back to the office door. Elaine, I am going outside. Please let me be until I come back inside. Thank you. Where are you going? Why? Elaine asked that I left, returning to the kitchen, where I got a large water bottle. I went out onto my deck and lit the fire pit. I took out an Indian blanket and sat in a lounge chair, wrapping myself in the soft blanket. I sipped the water and closed my eyes. The night was fantastic, and my nerves were pretty well shot. I tried to relax using the breathing techniques I had learned years ago. I finally calmed, and my head began to clear. Everything that had happened began to play across my mind, like a major movie production being edited, leaving parts on the cutting room floor. And keeping only the parts that fit together to make the story clear and understandable. After watching the edited story version, it slowly became clear what needed to happen and how I had to do it. I kept my eyes closed, and another short movie played. It made me smile that I finished the water, shut off the fire pit, and went back inside. In the kitchen, Elaine was sitting at the table. The divorce documents were lying before her, and a pen was also there. That made me wonder if she was giving up and why she was willing to sign the papers so quickly that I shook my head, clearing those thoughts away that I went to the office and brought back copies of the second document. I sat down and looked across the table at Elaine. She looked so sad, defeated, and confused. The discussion we were about to have would not make it easier for her, but in the end, she would understand. Elaine, the last 24 hours have been horrible for me in a mixed bag of incredible pleasure, mixed with pain and disgrace for you. What you have done, for whatever reason or under whatever circumstances, has devastated me. I am unclear about who I see now, but you are different. What Matthew did to you when he took over your mind and body and what you allowed to happen with Matthew has changed you. I am unsure if it is for better or worse, but you are now different in my eyes. What happened has created significant conflict for me and questions that must be answered. I struggle with these questions. They must be answered to my satisfaction before we can move forward. Elaine, how you answer these questions and your attitude from this moment forward will determine our future as husband and wife. Think hard before you answer. Do you understand? Elaine nodded her head yes. No, Elaine, say it. I need your words. Yes, Alfonso, I understand. I want to fix this mess I created. I love you, Alfonso, and cannot live without you. I am so sorry for what happened. Tears began to run down her cheeks again that I hated seeing Elaine crying. I knew she was an emotional wreck. I felt that she was sincere about her love for me and her sorrow for what had happened. The doctor's explanation was clear, but I still needed to hear from Elaine in her words how she allowed Matthew to dominate her. Elaine asked me, Alfonso, why is this discussion necessary? You have already prepared these divorce papers, so this must be what you want, casting me aside for what I have done. Maybe I should sign them, and this will all be over. Her words surprised me. Was she so willing to throw us away? Was I? I know I had confused her when I gave her the divorce papers to read. I hoped that would shock her, but it also caused her to pause, thinking I may have already decided on our future. Elaine, this has been hard for both of us. I need you to know that divorce is a clear path I can take. It is not the path I want, but you must know that divorce is on the table. If you are not the woman I can love unconditionally and who will love me in the same way, I will exercise the divorce, and we will be finished. It has to be that way. How could we build a family, if I am unsure who you are? Can I trust you from this day forward? I had no doubts about that before I arrived home. More tears rolled down Elaine's cheeks as I spoke. I knew that she could see all my pain and uncertainty about her and had no idea how to fix us. That decision lay entirely in my hands. So now it was time to get down to it and finally end this disaster. I had questions that Elaine had to answer clearly. They would mark the path forward for our futures. They were simple questions that may be hard for Elaine to answer. I looked at Elaine with no emotion. Elaine, please answer these questions. First, do you love me unconditionally and no one else? Oh God, yes, Alfonso, I love you more than the air I breathe. What I have done has nothing to do with love. I will always love you and will never forsake you again for anyone else. I showed no emotion at her answer. It was what I hoped I would hear. The sincerity in her voice made it clear to me that Elaine loved me and only me, just the same as I love her. Second, Elaine, if you love me as you say you do, please explain to me in your own words just how you could have allowed Matthew to dominate you the way he did for all the many hours that he did. Then afterward, I would have never known about it. Would you have told me or kept it a secret? The barrage of questions hit her hard. Elaine's face showed deep distress. Tears rolled down again. I was not sure if she knew the answers to all the parts of the question. Alfonso, I will answer what I can. Would I have told you what had happened? That is a hard question. I hope I would have had the strength to admit what I had allowed to happen, but Alfonso, I cannot tell you. The guilt would have consumed me and forced me to say to you that I was happy with Elaine's answers. She could not know the answers about the future or the next day, it would only be speculation, but her answers were clear. Thank you, Elaine. I believe you. I confirmed, easing some of her angst. That I left the divorce papers on the table and slid the second document face down beside it. Elaine, please do not look at this document. We will discuss it later. One last question. What do you think your punishment should be for your transgression? You need to tell me what should happen next. Elaine looked at me, surprised by my question. I thought it was fitting that Elaine named her poison before I sentenced her to her punishment. That I left the table, walked into the garage, and left. I had just had to face my loving husband's tough questions. I knew he was trying to understand what happened and how it all happened. I was not sure he knew those things, so how could I give him an answer? Then Alfonso asked a complicated question. What should my punishment be? Did that mean he was not divorcing me? Or maybe that was my punishment, and he wanted to know if that was what I wanted, too. No way is divorce what I want. So, what was my punishment to be? I had no idea what to suggest. I knew I needed counseling, but I really did not know what else. I had to leave that decision to Alfonso. I deserved whatever he decided. I don't want a divorce. That would kill me. That I looked at the divorce documents again, tore them in half, and laid them back on the table. If Alfonso wanted a divorce, he would have to print the papers out again. I saw the other document and wondered what it was. Alfonso told me not to look at it until later. Well, it was later as far as I was concerned. I picked up the document and looked at it. The postnuptial agreement was printed across the top. I had heard of this before but did not understand it. That I read through the document. It sent a chill up my spine. It was a contract between Alfonso and me for the rest of our marriage. It stated that if either of us cheated or we divorced for any reason, the offending party would receive virtually nothing in the divorce settlement, a measly $10,000 and all our personal belongings. If there were children, you would lose custody and have strict visitation for a few years. The house would remain with the parenting party until the children were away, and then it would be sold and split 70/30%. Oh God, was I going to have to sign this? Please, God, no. I will never cheat again. That I reread it, then put it back face down on the table. That I received a text from Alfonso. Where was he? AL's text. Elaine, text me when you are ready to complete our talk so we can decide on our future. My text, yes, I am ready now, where are you? AL's text, I went out to pick up something. I am on my way home now. Be waiting for me in the kitchen. I got each of us a glass of water and sat at the kitchen table. I heard the garage door open. Alfonso came in with a bag. He smiled and sat it on the table. He sat down and looked at me. So, Elaine, what have you decided for your fate? I placed the bag on the table. Elaine would be shocked at what was inside. The items were all part of her punishment. I sat down and looked at Elaine, then at the table. The divorce papers were torn in half, and the postnuptial agreement was moved. I am sure Elaine read it. Elaine, what have you decided your punishment should be? I asked again. She looked at me, and I could tell that she had gathered herself and was able to talk responsibly about our situation. That made me happy. Hopefully, we will be able to get through this and have a plan for moving forward. A few fun but demanding things would be brought into our lives. Elaine would not like some of them, but she would like some, and all were necessary for us to move on together. Since Elaine had not answered me, I asked again. Elaine, what is your punishment going to be? Elaine looked at me and picked up the torn-up divorce documents. Well, it will not be divorce, I'll tell you that. She said, tossing the papers at me. Wow, Elaine must have eaten some oats or something. Oh, really, I said back at her, picking up the pieces across the table. I take it you didn't like that idea? No, I hate the idea. I don't think you like the idea either. Otherwise, we would not be sitting here, and you would have had me served already. She looked a little smug. But when I looked at her sternly, she changed her look. Maybe she was wrong. Well, then, what is your punishment to be? I asked again. Elaine looked down. I don't know what kind of punishment you want for me. I don't have any ideas. I do know I need to continue counseling. I was not surprised. What punishment was justified for this type of infidelity? I was unsure but would enjoy it, hence the things in the bag. This was an opening that I had not expected, so some of my fantasies would be realized as part of Elaine's punishment. Elaine reached out, picked up the postnuptial agreement, and waved it at me. I guess you expect me to sign this agreement? Yes, that is one required item you must sign. And counseling is the other commitment you must make, I stated. Elaine looked at the agreement, then at me. Would you be this mean to me, throwing me out with almost nothing? The look on Elaine's face quickly morphed from smug and self-assured to concern and despair. Elaine, this agreement is to protect both of us. It works both ways. If I cheat on you or you on me, the same thing happens to the cheating party. It is fair to each of us. It will never even matter unless you plan on cheating on me again. So, sign it and forget it. I picked up the pen, signed the agreement, and pushed it across the table to Elaine. She stared at it for a minute and then looked at me. There was sadness in her eyes. And I knew she felt concerned. Elaine knew that just signing the postnuptial agreement admitted her guilt and failure as a wife. It was also proof that I may not be able to trust her as I always had before. Elaine signed the agreement and ran from the room. I heard the bedroom door slam. She was crushed. I knew our discussion was delayed for a while. I signed the agreement and ran out of the room. I went to the bedroom, slammed the door, and fell on the bed. I sobbed for a good while. I had made a huge mess of our lives all for nothing. I didn't even make it happen, it just did. I wonder how we can ever get through this. It was clear that Alfonso needed me to sign the agreement to feel I was committed to being faithful to him and our marriage. So I signed it. That I rolled onto my back, looking up at the ceiling, trying to think through what I had done, thinking of what Dr. Wilson had told me and all the things I felt. I feel so cheap. I really hate myself now. I understand how Alfonso must feel. We had a perfect marriage and were committed to each other with undying love. Now, that is all in question. I know that I love Al with all of me. It kills me to know how badly I have let him down and hurt him. Alfonso loves me just as much as I love him and is trying to work through his feelings, doubts, and concerns about us as a couple and our ability to build the family we want. The door opened, and Alfonso stood there. He looked at me with a mix of love and hate in his eyes. Something I had only seen the day this happened and hoped never to see again, yet here it was again. Elaine, we have to finish this. I cannot continue in limbo any longer. We must decide to move on together or divorce. I refuse to go another day while this decision is being made. So, get out of that bed and come to the kitchen, we have decisions to make. He barked in the harshest of tones. Alfonso turned and walked away. He frightened me, but he was right. I was being defensive when I had no right to be. That I slipped off the bed, followed Alfonso to the kitchen, and sat across from him. Elaine, it seems that you cannot tell me what your punishment should be, so I have some things that will happen as punishment and become a part of our life from here on. You will not like some of them at first, but I am sure that over time, you will enjoy them as our life broadens and we start our family. You do want us to have a family, correct? Oh yes, Alfonso, I want a family badly. I want us to start making babies when you feel the time is right. Hopefully, very soon, Elaine said with a smile. There was relief that we were not divorcing. Well, then, Elaine, there will be rules you must live by starting today. I have written them out for you so you can remember them. Once you agree, I will print a final copy for you to sign. First, Elaine, from this day forward, you may never deny me. Second, you will agree to play in any fantasy in the bedroom that I desire. You may also have any fantasy you desire, neither of us will deny anything. I reached into the bag, bringing out a box. Third, Elaine, you will wear this chastity belt for the next 6 months anytime I am away from you. That means every day at work, home alone, or when I am out of town. I will have the only key and unlock it for you when I am home. Elaine looked at me in astonishment. She picked it up and examined it along with the 2 accessories. She looked at me and asked, how does it work? I will show you later. Oh, Al, I am not sure. I cut her off. Elaine, this is not an option. It is going to happen. I stated firmly, item was for me. Oh, my God, Alfonso, you have planned this all out. Elaine's voice was excited. Yes, I love you, Elaine, and never want anything like what has happened ever to have the chance of happening again. Al, what is this? I could see that Elaine was mystified by all the toys I purchased and the wonder in her eyes as she considered the future. Elaine looked at me. Alfonso, I am so sorry I cheated on you. I promise it will never happen again. Dr. Wilson has been straight, her counseling will ensure I understand myself. I love you so much and never want to lose you. I have learned just how much you mean to me. That I stood, smiled, and grabbed Elaine's hand, pulling her with me to the bedroom. Clothes dropped in the hallway as we went for the first time in days. We were together again. We loved each other, and Elaine's transgression had passed. It was just us again. Matthew was only a bad memory. We fell asleep in each other's arms, sleeping peacefully again. Epilogue, birth control stopped, and several months later, we had made a little one to be born just before Christmas. Skip forward 3 years that we are happier than ever. We have the cutest little girl, Eve, for Evelyn. We also have a little man in the oven baking away, ready in about 3 months. Our life is good. No. I have to say our life is great.